Whoa. So, do you remember last year that submarine that went missing after it did a bunch of scanning underneath the ice? It found some mysterious structures and then it disappears. It was a $50 million joint venture to map under the ice and, watch these glaciers melt, see how fast that they're melting, etc. At least that's what they've told us publicly. However, what does Operation Highjump and the missing submarine ran have in common? Well, they took place at the same place. So, what's so important about West Antarctica that the US military 80 years ago sent 4,000 troops, I think 33 different planes, several vessels? I've got all the statistics I'm going to share with you in a minute. And then 80 years later, they send out a $50 million unmanned submarine that disappears. This is pretty weird. The plot's thickening. Read about it. SciTech Daily, also Marine Technology News. 23-foot long submersible equipped with advanced sensors, sonar systems, conducting its second expedition, studying the underside of the ice shelf. It disappears. So we're going to talk about it. And before we do, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Noble Gold Investments. I don't know if you've got gold and silver. It feels pretty good, doesn't it? But also, if you've got a 401 or an IRA, if you convert that into precious metals, if you qualify, Noble Gold will gift you a 5-ounce solid silver America the Beautiful coin. They'll even throw in a Silver is the New Oil book. It's a bestseller by Colin Plume. And there's some great opportunities right now with Noble Gold Investments. Find out why the big banks are usurping gold at near record rates. And they have been for several years. Now, there's obviously never any guarantees. So I look at what the big banks are doing. And if you look at the numbers, gold and silver and precious metals, there's so much upside right now. Give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. Go to Noble Gold Investments, let them know Leak Project sent you, and find out how to get that 5-ounce America the Beautiful silver coin. All right, let's get into this. So, early 2024, the autonomous underwater vehicle named RAN disappeared beneath Antarctica's Dotson Ice Shelf during a research mission led by Professor Anna Wallen from the University of Gothenburg. RAN is a 23-foot-long submersible equipped with advanced sensors, sonar systems, and it was conducting its second expedition to study the underside of the ice shelf when contact was lost. Despite extensive search efforts utilizing acoustic equipment, helicopters, and drones, the submersible was not recovered. SciTech Daily. Now, I find that very interesting. Sure, I mean, there's definitely a possibility there was some type of event, some natural event that took place that caused the submersible submarine to disappear under the ice. I find it very peculiar when I research the location. And then when you think about how these submarines are going to be filled with equipment that you can track these things, how did they lose that? Unless it got turned off. You know how airplanes have black boxes where you can track these planes when they crash almost all the time, except for one plane in particular that I'm thinking about that disappeared. And then, anyway, that's a whole other podcast. This is very, very interesting. So prior to its disappearance, RAN had provided valuable data on the ice shelf structure and melting processes. The submersible's missions revealed complex underwater formations, significant variations in melting rates, contributing to a better understanding of how subsurface currents influence glacial melting and potential sea level rise. Have you heard of Operation Highjump? Well, Operation Highjump, and I actually talked to a gentleman that knew Admiral Byrd. He went to Antarctica for Operation Highjump. His name, Robert Johnson. I think he was a major in the Army, and he served from like 30-something, from 1937. He retired in the 50s. He went to Antarctica like 4 different times. I've got a phone call conversation that I had with him recorded. If you'd like to listen to that, because I talked to him about Operation Highjump, I've got the full phone call conversation uploaded on our Patreon page. You can listen to that over there. I've also uploaded part of it here on YouTube. But when I asked Robert about his experience in Operation Highjump, it wasn't what I expected. Now, if you haven't heard of Operation Highjump, let me tell you a little bit about Operation Highjump. This was one of the biggest military operations ever. And it was publicly established for Antarctica research, and they put a base there called Little America. It was organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, and the officer in charge, Task Force 68, led by Admiral Ethan Eric Larson. Highjump's objectives, according to the U.S. Navy report: training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions, consolidating and extending the United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent, publicly denied as a goal before the expedition ended. Very interesting. So they've already admitted something they denied. Determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in the Antarctic and investigating possible base sites, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to later applicability of such techniques to operations in interior Greenland, where conditions are comparable to those in the Antarctic. Amplifying existing stories of knowledge of electromagnetic, geopolitical, geographic, hydrographic, and meteorological propagation conditions in the area. Now, there were supplementary objectives of the Nanook expedition, which was a smaller equivalent conducted off eastern Greenland. Now, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories out there about how the U.S. military actually left because they were under attack via flying saucers and high technology, and allegedly Admiral Byrd met these people inner Earth. I've read the full diary, and if you want to listen to the full diary, I've actually got the audio of that on Patreon as well. You can listen to it in full. Now, I don't know if I'm definitely not convinced that Admiral Byrd wrote that diary. I think somebody else wrote it, but that's just my own personal beliefs. I know a lot of people think that it is absolutely gospel and he wrote it, and that he met these people inner Earth with high technologies. It's possible. I mean, I'll give it a 5%, 10% chance maybe, without actually seeing any proof or evidence other than this journal. And when you read the journal, does it really sound like Admiral Byrd? I'd like to get your thoughts on that. But anyway, Admiral Byrd, in the journal claims Admiral Byrd made contact with very highly technologically advanced beings that live inner Earth, and they told him to tell others to, we need to stop nuclear testing and war is bad. What you basically hear all the times from alleged ETs, how, we're being warmongering as a society and as a species, and we need to stop. It makes, it's great. It's a great story. It's a great message, but is it true? I don't know. But I find it really weird that the military sends out 4,700 soldiers and men, 70 ships, 33 aircraft. Notice the number 33. I get it. And training personnel and testing equipment for conditions. We already went over all that. Do you believe that they had to leave? Do you believe that Operation Highjump and those involved had to leave because they were threatened by some flying saucer technology? I want to read your comments in the comments section. Well, the more research I do, this location that they go out and study is the same area that this submersible submarine is testing and doing, censored like photographs. It's picking up everything it can underneath these ice sheets. The Dotson Ice Shelf is about 30 miles wide between the Martin Peninsula and Byrd Peninsula on the coast of Mary Byrd Land in Antarctica. It was first mapped by the U.S. Geological Survey from air photos obtained by the U.S. Navy Operation Highjump in January of 1947. It was named by the Advisory Committee on Antarctic Names for Lieutenant William A. Dotson, former Navy officer in charge of the Ice Reconnaissance Unit of the Naval Oceanographic Office. Nanu Nanu. Here is satellite image to show you the Dotson Ice Shelf in between the Martin Peninsula and the Bear Peninsula. Here's a massive chunk of iceberg that broke off of the Dotson Ice Shelf. This is the U.S. National Ice Center, which I think is ran by the Navy. Western Antarctica. So Western Antarctica, tons of military bases and research facilities along the coast. But what's further inland? Let's go back and read a little bit about Operation Highjump. This is very interesting. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, the Walgreen Coast. This is a portion of the coast of Antarctica between Cape Hurlachar and Cape Waite. And the founder of Walgreens, this is actually named after the founder of Walgreens, and he was close friends with Admiral Byrd from the research that I did. Pretty interesting. So this right here is the Thwaites Glacier, also considered the Doomsday Glacier. And the submersible was tasked in researching this area. So prior to its disappearance, RAN had provided valuable data on the ice shelf structure and melting processes. The submersible's missions revealed complex underwater formations, significant variations in melting rates, and which that contributed to a better understanding of how subsurface currents influence glacial melting and potential sea level rise. How does a $50 million submersible vessel or a submarine that has all sorts of high technology that works great for like 27 days, does multiple operations, and then when it goes to this area, it disappears? What's up with that? Now, I think something happened. I think it was either some kind of espionage, whether it was from non-human intelligence or not. I don't necessarily think it was from non-human intelligence, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'll give that maybe a 5-10% chance. Something clearly happened, and it doesn't seem natural. And let's look into this a little bit more. RAN vanished beneath Antarctica Dotson Ice Shelf during a research mission led by Professor Anna Whalen from the University of Gothenburg. Prior to its disappearance, it ran extensive surveys revealing intricate underwater formations, teardrop-shaped structures, complex erosion patterns. The cause of RAN's disappearance remains unknown. Theories include potential collisions with uncharted underwater formations, technical malfunctions, or interactions with marine life. The loss of RAN underscores the challenges inherent in polar research and highlights the need for continued technology advancements to safely explore these remote and hostile environments. Oh, yeah, it was a whale. It was a whale. It got hungry. And it got bored. It was a big, giant whale that got bored. So it just started smacking the shit out of that thing. I'm joking. Forgive me. I just had to say it. But the Dotson Ice Shelf doesn't have a widely recognized nickname. It is referred to as the Melting Sentinel. It is not referred to as the Doomsday Glacier. The Doomsday Glacier is considered the Thwaites Glacier, one of the planet's most critical and closely, and this is where the submarine was, this is what it was scanning under the ice, then it disappears. Spanning approximately 80 miles in width, it is the widest glacier on Earth. It drains an area of about 74,000 square miles, and that's comparable in size to the state of Florida. Often referred to as the Doomsday Glacier, Thwaites has been experiencing rapid changes in recent decades. Since the 80s, it has lost over 600 billion tons of ice, contributing approximately 4% of the annual global sea level rise. The glacier's ice loss is primarily driven by warm ocean waters infiltrating beneath it, leading to accelerated melting and retreat. Scientists say the potential collapse of the Thwaites Glacier poses a significant threat If it were to melt entirely, it could raise global sea level by about 2 feet. Moreover, Thwaites acts as a barrier for the West Antarctica ice sheet. Its collapse could destabilize surrounding glaciers, potentially leading to a cumulative sea level rise up to 10 feet over time. Now, I know I'm already going to read the comments. So many of you are going to leave comments in the comment section that you think you absolutely know what's going on. Like, if all of the ice was to melt, you still believe that it wouldn't matter because somehow all the land mass would float on all the water. And look, I mean, I don't know. And I'm pretty skeptical when I read a lot of the doomsday predictions from certain organizations that have been using. Look, I get it, but I certainly don't know about if all of the ice was to melt, if the coast would be the same. Now, it looks like it's been the same for the past few hundred years in certain areas, like at least America, but you know, the world's a pretty big place and I haven't been everywhere and I don't have all the data. So I can't guarantee that if all the ice was to melt, we would still have the same, this. I've heard so many ridiculous theories from people that think they're absolutely experts because they've read a little bit on the internet and they think they know everything, and it's amazing. So I stay open-minded to this kind of stuff. I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to call everything BS until proven otherwise. Maybe you should do that too. Everything's BS until you can prove it otherwise. How about that? So the Thwaites Glacier is the focus of extensive international scientific research. The International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration, a partnership between the U.S. and the United Kingdom, is conducting comprehensive studies to understand the glacier's dynamics, monitor its changes, and predict future behavior. Understanding and monitoring the Thwaites Glacier is crucial for predicting future sea level rise and developing strategies to mitigate the impacts of climate change on coastal communities worldwide. You should buy more carbon credits while you're at it. Just joking. You can read about it in New York Post, and these other articles are available. So the autonomous underwater vehicle RAN, which was developed by the University of Gothenburg, played a pivotal role in understanding the Thwaites Glacier. In 2019, RAN became the first. So it's doing a multitude of expeditions before it just disappears. And I find that also, well, I mean, that doesn't make it any more or less likely. The fact that it disappeared and they can't track it and they can't find it with the best technologies and the amount of money they put into it, I find that interesting. So back in 2019, RAN became the first submersible to explore beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf. During the mission, it collected valuable data on the pathways and modification of warm water following beneath the ice shelf, offering insights into the mechanisms driving ice melt. Then again, in 2022, RAN conducted a detailed survey under the Dotson Ice Shelf adjacent to Thwaites. Over 27 days, the AUV traveled more than 1,000 kilometers beneath 350 meters of ice. It's over 1,000 feet down, and what is that, like approximately 600 miles? Utilizing advanced sonar to map the underside of the ice shelf, the mission revealed intricate basalt formations, including peak and valley structures and dune-like features, shedding light on the complex interactions between ocean currents and ice melt. Marine Technology News. Then in 2024, during a subsequent mission to the Thwaites Glacier aboard the South Korean icebreaker, RAN embarked on its final planned dive. After a long journey under the ice, the AUV failed to resurface at the designated rendezvous point. Extensive search efforts included the use of acoustic equipment, helicopters, drones, all unsuccessful, leading to the conclusion that RAN was lost beneath the ice. There's an image of it right there. So what is RAN? It is an autonomous underwater vehicle, state-of-the-art submersible developed by the University of Gothenburg, designed to explore and study some of the most challenging and inaccessible underwater environments on Earth. It's autonomous. RAN was pre-programmed to operate independently. It could make decisions based on environmental data, allowing it to navigate complex terrains beneath ice shelves and in deep sea regions. Equipped with advanced navigation systems, RAN utilized a combination of inertial navigation, Doppler velocity logs, sonar systems to determine its position and avoid obstacles. Until that whale showed up and it was pissed. It's like, you're in my territory, man. What are you doing? I've been watching you scan things and moving stuff. I'm the big whale out here. Sensors and instruments. RAN was outfitted with high-resolution acoustic sonar, environmental sensors, mapping instruments. These tools enabled it to collect detailed data on underwater structures, ocean currents, temperature, salinity, and other parameters. It was the first AUV to explore beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf. Then its 27-day mission, it traversed over 1,000 kilometers beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf. And then its final mission was underneath the Doomsday Glacier, the Dotson Glacier. This area is very close to Operation Highjump took place. And allegedly, Admiral Byrd in his diary talks about these different coordinates, and he's talking about flying, and then all of a sudden he sees these areas that appear to be like there's no ice. There's vegetation. And then he keeps going, and he ends up somehow into this massive hole. And then he keeps going, and then he gets basically escorted by these flying saucers. And then he meets the master, and the master tells him that he needs to go back and tell his peers that they need to quit with the war games. They need to quit with the nuclear weapons. And the reason they chose him is because he is an admirable admiral, according to the diary. And everybody that I talked to that has either researched Admiral Byrd or who knew Admiral Byrd, like Robert Johnson, because he worked with him, he said Admiral Byrd was amazing. Very honorable guy. But then this thing, so, I mean, what if the journal is true? What if the journal is true and there's some type of entrance to the inner earth? There's some type of massive entrance that allows for these highly advanced beings that live much longer than we do. Maybe the stories of like the hobbits are real. The elves live in earth. The orcs live above ground. And then you've got those pesky humans. The humans, the elves, and the orcs. The orcs would be like the Nephilim, according to Kristen, because it's like, why do the Nephilim get such a bad rap in these biblical scriptures? I mean, maybe they weren't all that bad. And she's like, well, Rex, just look at them like the orcs in The Hobbit. And I'm like, oh, but what if I was an orc in a past life? I'm just saying. Kristen has elf ears, so she was definitely an elf. My other friend Cliff, he's got elf ears. He was definitely an elf. And now I was a freaking orc. So now I guess we were friends back in the day, even though I was just a mean, pesky Nephilim orc. Or orc, not Nephilim. Never. I'm not big enough to be a Nephilim. Those dudes are like 7 feet tall, right? At least. I mean, if you read the book of Enoch, the Nephilim would be actually a mile in height. But I don't think they could have got that big. I think that's symbolic for something. Anyway, whole other podcast. Operation Highjump. 1946, 1947, a significant U.S. Navy operation aimed to establish the Antarctic research base, Little America, the fourth. The operation commenced August 26, 1946, concluded in late February of 1947, organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd Jr. and led by Rear Admiral Ethan Eric Larson, 4,700 personnel, 70 ships, 33 aircraft. That's not symbolic for anything. They wanted to establish a base, sovereignty, assertion, training and equipment testing, air-based techniques, scientific research, all in very cold, uninhabitable, difficult to survive environment. Also, there was an objective called Nanook Expedition, which is a supplementary objective off of eastern Greenland. Maybe President Trump knows something about the inner Earth people. According to Haim Eshed, retired Israeli space guru. I don't know what the official position is, but he was very high up in the echelon of military and defense. He came out allegedly, according to the news, and you know how they're all, anyway, he came out and said in the news, allegedly, that President Trump knows about these beings on Mars and they're a part of a galactic federation. I mean, I don't know. If he knows about them, would he know about the inner Earth people too? Are a lot of the flying saucers and a lot of the stuff that we saw in the 40s when it comes to UFOs, most of them were probably our own. Most of it was probably our own military. But what about the stuff that was seen over nuclear sites and nuclear testing and the Trinity blast site? What about all that? Does it make more sense that they came from quadrillions of miles away, light years away, because they were upset about what we were doing here? Or would it make more sense that they lived somewhere maybe on the Earth or within the Earth, and they knew that if the outside of the Earth was going to get blown up with nuclear weapons, they knew that it was going to have an effect on the inner Earth as well? I mean, possible. So a tragic incident occurred December 30th, 1946 with Operation Highjump. Then January 15th, 1947, the central group of ships reached the Bay of Wells, where they began constructing the Little America 4 base. And then February of 1947, naval ships and personnel were withdrawn back to the U.S. due to the early approach of winter and worsening weather conditions. Doesn't say anything about UFOs or rogue Nazis or anything like that. It just says weather conditions. I don't know. But Operation Highjump led to the mapping of over 300,000 square miles of uncharted Antarctic territory using aerial photography. The expedition also discovered 2 ice-free areas. Oh, 2 ice-free areas referred to as oases featuring lakes and land. These findings significantly updated existing charts and maps of the Antarctic region. Yeah, it's still probably like 50 below out there. I don't think it's a utopia where they can, like, you know, grow bananas and like harvest fish and like shrimp and, you know, avocados and stuff. Probably not. But anyway, maybe if it was inside of a building. And there's so many thermal pockets under the ice out there, massive caves and thermal pockets and huge areas that you could retrofit. I wouldn't be surprised if they got submarines out there that are going underneath tunnels and stuff that they don't tell us about. But the ones they do tell us about disappear. Operation Highjump remains one of the most ambitious Antarctic expeditions ever undertaken, contributing significantly to scientific knowledge and geopolitical interests in the polar region. So they wanted to do aircraft reconnaissance. Secondary areas of interest for aerial reconnaissance were the Ron Ice Shelf and Weddell Sea region, Thurston Island, which is where a Martin PBM-5 Mariner aircraft, George 1, crashed December 30th, 1946. Very, very, very interesting. So where are they, ladies and gentlemen? Could they just wear like cloak suits? They can travel the stars. They could probably wear some invisible suit and just, you know, be right there watching us and we wouldn't even know it. Star Trek's going in. I got to stop. All right. I'm going to quit with the Star Trek stuff, but thank you so much for watching. What in the heck knocked that submarine out? Rogue whale? Did a piece of ice fall from the icebergs onto the ice? Hit it? Did it run out of super sensor power? Why can't we find it? How deep is that area? If they tracked it until it crashed, then you would think if they were able to track it until it crashed that you would have a pretty good idea. Like, listen to this. Listen to this. I want to show you this. Ran submarine program. How much was it? I think it was $50 million. Oh, it's going to give me 2 different versions. Thank you, ChatGPT. Perfect time to respond twice. I'll be okay with just one response. Waiting. No. Come on. Fine, be that way. I don't care. I'll find it out somewhere else. Here we go. Right here. No. Well, that's a cue. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you on Patreon. And be the change.